For the annual GeekWire Summit, this is Bloomberg Technology. Coming up in the next hour, Seattle is home to tech behemoths like Amazon and Microsoft. But with such a small venture capital community, can the city set the stage for the next Amazon or Microsoft? We will discuss. Plus, Boeing's sky-high ambitions. We'll hear from CEO Dennis Muilenburg on the aircraft maker's plans for hypersonic planes, self-flying cars, and beating Elon Musk to Mars. I sit down with him in an exclusive interview. Microsoft has its head in the cloud. How the tech giant is tapping into its longtime enterprise partnerships to take on Amazon in the race to own cloud computing. But first to our top story, we are live at the annual GeekWire Summit here in Seattle, where more than 900 entrepreneurs and executives and investors have come together to talk about the future of the innovation economy. This is a city that's given rise to giants like Amazon and Microsoft, but with Amazon putting its second headquarters elsewhere, the question remains, can Seattle support the next big tech giant? One of the execs who presented here and has an opinion about all of this, Glenn Kelman, CEO of Redfin, which is a tech-powered real estate brokerage that helps people buy and sell homes based right here in Seattle. Glenn joins us now to talk about the city's rapidly evolving tech landscape, and also with us here on the set, Bloomberg Tech Spencer Soper, who of course covers Amazon and is based here. So Glenn, I want to start with you because you're seeing market trends in Seattle that in some ways reflect what you're seeing more broadly. Talk to us about how the tech scene here is related to the real estate scene at large.
Well, tech blew up this town. Over the past 5 years, we've seen 50% price growth. Many people in this middle-class town have now been priced out. We are probably past peak Seattle for the first time this year. We saw more people using our website to leave Seattle than to come to Seattle. It has been a moment of reckoning for this town because we've always been a destination for people looking for a better life.
So the peak is gone, behind us.
More people are leaving than are coming in. We still have plenty of tech folks coming in, but inventory has started to pile up, and some folks have said enough is enough.
What's been the impact of Amazon on Seattle for better and for worse?
Oh, well, it's been an overwhelmingly positive impact. Yeah. I mean, every city in America is vying for HQ2. It has created this massive amount of prosperity and all of these jobs. It has created an entire tech ecosystem. But we are having the same challenge that San Francisco did, trying to deal with that prosperity, making sure that it is well divided among all of the citizens, because this used to be a logging town and a coffee town and a Nordstrom and a Costco town. It used to be a middle-class town, and now it is a total tech scene.
Is it bad for Seattle that Amazon is looking elsewhere? I mean, they're creating 50,000 new jobs, not here.
Well, I think they're going to be hiring here as fast as they can, too. There are buildings going up left and right. It's just that they had all of their eggs in one basket. And tension started to build between the city and its largest employer. And at some point, if you're running that company, you have to have another place to go.
Now, Spencer, you've been reporting on Amazon's decision to raise the minimum wage of workers, and you've poked some holes in this plan, whereby the company isn't just raising the minimum wage, they're also taking away things like equity and bonuses. What is the latest?
Yeah, so Amazon giveth and Amazon taketh away. So they made big headlines yesterday with the $15 an hour minimum wage pledge for its warehouse workers. And it's a very savvy move for Amazon because it basically jumped from being this poster boy for wealth and equity to being a leader of the $15 an hour and living wage movement. But then the footnote on that is that there were some compensation programs that they're eliminating. So one is stock options that warehouse workers will see phased out over the next couple of years, and the other are some incentive bonuses based on how much time off you've taken and some production bonuses as well. Those will be eliminated. So some things are being taken away. And the bottom line is that the $15 an hour announcement is very good for new workers at Amazon. Those are the ones who will see the starting wage go up the most. And then people who have been in the warehouses a few years won't see as big of a bump. They'll still see a bump, but not as big of a bump. And so some of them are a little frustrated by all the publicity around it.
What do you think the political implications are of Amazon setting the minimum wage as opposed to the federal government?
Well, I think Uber set the minimum wage before Amazon did. Part of the issue is that we're all competing for talent with people who are driving for Uber. So if you're trying to pay $12 an hour, Walmart workers are walking out of the store and driving a car instead. So I think some of this was conceding ground to Bernie Sanders and everyone else, and some of this is just the reality of a booming economy and a very tight labor market. So I think Amazon did this in part because it wants to advance a kinder, gentler capitalism, but in part because it had to staff those warehouses.
Any updates on HQ2, Spencer, and where? Like, will it be Washington? Jeff Bezos just paid Washington a visit.
That seems to be the favorite spot of speculation. Is
Despite the awkwardness with the president?
Somewhere in the D.C. area, and he was even asked about it in his recent visit a couple weeks ago and didn't really say anything that you could read the tea leaves from. But the advantages of Amazon being in the D.C. region would be that it's become so large and there's so much of an antitrust conversation going around it. A lot of people within Amazon feel like the biggest weakness or threat to Amazon is just misunderstanding around Amazon. So if you suddenly have that proximity, you can definitely evangelize from the nation's capital and potentially thwart some of those concerns.
Now, Glenn, before you go, I have to ask about the broader real estate market. We're seeing signs of a slowdown. Is this the beginning of a prolonged slowdown, and has the market really turned?
We won't know for sure. The market has turned at the end of the year, but if the economy keeps booming, if the stock market goes up, and people still have a need to live somewhere come next spring, I think we're going to see prices rise again. But it's a real thing. There are houses piling up that used to sell quite easily that suddenly have been on the market 4 weeks, 8 weeks. It's not just in 1 or 2 cities. It's in cities across America. It's concentrated in the most coastal markets. I don't think it's surfaced in all the figures yet. September is going to be softer than August, if I had to bet.
All right. Glenn Kelman, CEO of Redfin. Great to see you here in Seattle. Spencer Sope, good to see you here in person. Thank you both.
Thanks.
All right, coming up, Boeing Beyond the Skies, our exclusive conversation with CEO Dennis Muilenburg on how he plans to keep the company on the technological edge on Earth and in space. Next. And if you like Bloomberg News, check us out on the radio, listen on the Bloomberg app, Bloomberg.com, and in the U.S. on SiriusXM. This is Bloomberg. Welcome back to a special edition of Bloomberg Technology live from the GeekWire Summit in Seattle. Well, decades after the space race slowed down, it's revving back up again. And only this time, it's not just the United States versus the USSR. It is a race that's largely being run by private companies like SpaceX, like Blue Origin, like Boeing. Earlier, we sat down with Dennis Muilenburg, the CEO of Boeing. This is a company that's betting on a robust space community and a Jetsons-like future of flying cars. Here is our exclusive conversation on just how the 102-year-old company is planning to stay relevant both on Earth and in space over the next century.
This is an exciting time in the aerospace business. We have more innovation happening in aerospace than we ever have in our history. It comes in the forms of new products and services like our new 737 MAX and 777X commercial airplanes, new defense products, but also transformation in how we design and build, robotics in our factories, things like artificial intelligence, a new autonomous aircraft, new spacecraft, high-speed aircraft. So the time of innovation is incredible right now, and it's a great way for us to draw talent for the future.
I know you're an engineer at heart, and you've been at Boeing your entire career. So
33 years.
You have lived and breathed this, and you think a lot about the future. You think that self-flying cars will be here sooner than we think. How fast?
Yeah. We see that whole front of what I call urban mobility transforming right before our very eyes. So we're building prototype vehicles today. We expect to be flying those vehicles within the coming year. We're also working with
So in the coming year, self-flying cars will be in the air.
Prototype vehicles, absolutely. And we're working with the authorities like the FAA as well on the regulatory framework. It's really important when you think about these dense urban environments, think about a future where you'll have three-dimensional highways to relieve traffic congestion and help people operate more efficiently. Not only do we need new vehicles, but we need an ecosystem that will allow that to happen safely and reliably. So we're working on both the ecosystem, the regulatory framework, and the new vehicles. All of that is happening now, and I would expect within the next 5 years, we'll see initial operational capability being fielded.
You bought a company that's making these vehicles for Uber, Aurora Flight Sciences. When will we see Uber deploy these?
Yeah. Well, we're going to see Aurora building prototypes and flying the prototypes next year. Part of that will be their work with Uber and that interface as candidates for what Uber is thinking about. But there are a number of companies involved in developing prototypes and working on this future system. We're also working with a small company called Spark Cognition on the idea of unmanned traffic management systems, to make sure that the ecosystem is safe. So the amount of capital investment happening here is very significant, and you're going to see rapid progress here over the next several years, and you're going to see Boeing with our partners right at the forefront.
You're also unveiling a concept for a hypersonic plane that can go back and forth between like New York and London in just a couple of hours. I keep asking when, but when would something like that be commercially available to someone like me?
This is something, again, I expect to see happen over the next decade, so a little longer time frame. The hypersonic technology that we need, the propulsion technology, is in hand, and we're demonstrating that on test vehicles like our X-51. But we also need to make sure the business case works, that the economics work, that there are enough passengers who would pay a premium to get anywhere in the world in two hours. We also think that will mature over the next decade, and you'll see the economics and the technology come together. So imagine a future that has today's commercial airplanes even more efficient, combined with hypersonic airplanes that connect the world, any two city pairs, in a couple of hours.
You're the lead contractor for the International Space Station and also one of the main contractors building NASA's space launch system that may take the first astronauts to Mars. And yet Boeing doesn't get nearly as much attention as SpaceX or even Blue Origin. Is that an oversight?
Well, I think what it reflects is our approach as a company is we're very focused on working with our customers and doing the real work of enabling a space ecosystem. And in some cases, we're collaborating with SpaceX and Blue Origin, and we have great partnerships. In some cases, we're competing. But we're building that space ecosystem for the future. You know, our new Starliner capsule, we're testing that vehicle now. We'll have first launch next year. That will help us create a low Earth orbit space ecosystem. We're building that first rocket to Mars with our NASA customer today in the Space Launch System program. So this is reality. And these are things that we're working on today and we'll be flying shortly.
Have you ever thought about stepping up the tweeting like Elon Musk?
Now, I prefer to stick to getting our business done. You know, Boeing has thrived for a century because we stay close to our customers, we deliver on our promises, we provide real capability that's safe and affordable, and we're going to continue to do that for the future. We know that people's lives depend on what we do, and we should do it with a great sense of excellence.
SpaceX and Musk have said they can get to Mars in the 2020s. NASA's looking at the 2030s. I know you think you can get there sooner than the 2030s. You think you can beat SpaceX?
We'll with our NASA customer, we'll put the first person on Mars. You know, the fact is that we are the only ones building a rocket today that's actually capable of going to the moon and to Mars. Not something on paper, we're actually building it today. Space Launch System that we're working on with NASA, a 38-story tall rocket is being built today. We'll do initial test flights next year. With NASA, we're going to return to the moon. We're going to set up a permanent presence on the moon, and from there we're going to step to Mars.
Can you get it there in the 2020s?
I think it's possible. Right? That'll require continued, reliable funding, continued success on our test programs. The technology is not the pacing item here. It is the will to do it and the capital funding to make it happen. But we're going to be at the leading edge here, and I still firmly believe first person that steps foot on Mars will get there on this combined NASA-Boeing rocket.
You're one of the largest U.S. exporters. You've got a very long supply chain. How is this trade war impacting Boeing?
Well, it's something we're keeping a very close eye on. You know, aerospace is a thriving, growing industrial business. I would argue the strongest industrial business in the world. The world needs about 43,000 new airplanes over the next 20 years. Only about 18%, less than 20% of the world's population has ever taken a single flight. So the amount of growth still ahead of us in the airplane business is extraordinary. It also depends on free global trade and free movement of people to be successful. So we're very engaged in the trade dialogue. I think the good thing about aerospace is there's a lot of mutual dependency. If you take U.S. and China, for example, both economies thrive on a healthy aerospace industry. It's a great generator of manufacturing jobs here in the U.S. And as China grows, they need about 7,000 new airplanes over the next 20 years to create their increase in capacity. So we have a mutual interest here to find a trade solution that's balanced.
But how long are you bracing for this to be prolonged before that solution, if it is reached?
Yeah. It's not clear what the duration will be. What I will say is we're very much engaged in the dialogue. We're at the table. We're having conversations with leadership both in the U.S. and China, and we are very much focused on trying to find solutions that benefit both countries.
Our exclusive interview there with Boeing CEO Dennis Muilenburg. And still ahead, Amazon may be the leader in the cloud, but Microsoft is on its tail, now exploiting its longtime enterprise partnerships to bring in new business. We will speak to the company's corporate vice president for Microsoft Azure next. And Bloomberg Tech is live streaming on Twitter. Check us out at Technology, and be sure to follow our Global Breaking News Network TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg. Welcome back to a special edition of Bloomberg Technology. We are live from the GeekWire Summit in Seattle, a gathering of executives, entrepreneurs, and investors. Microsoft continues to sign big deals taking on Amazon Web Services in the cloud, bringing on partners like Coca-Cola, Starbucks, Chevron, and most recently, Volkswagen. Amazon is the market leader, but Microsoft is leveraging already strong relationships with large enterprise customers to bring them on board the Azure train. Joining me now to discuss how the fight is going, Julia White, Corporate Vice President for Microsoft Azure. You know, when you look at Amazon Web Services, where do you feel that Azure beats it, and where do you feel that Azure still lags?
I think what you spoke about are really our understanding of the enterprise and things like building hybrid, and really from the very beginning of Azure, understanding that technology will run across data centers, across the edge and in the public cloud, and building that from the very beginning. But I also think it's about our partnership with, these aren't just customers like Volkswagen, Coca-Cola, and Chevron. We're really partnering deeply with them, helping them with their transformation, not just being a technology vendor or a cloud vendor for them. So I think those are some of the really important reasons customers are choosing Azure.
What does it take to win a big partner like that, though? When Amazon is the market leader, and I'm sure you hear customers say, well, Amazon is more experienced, they have more of a track record.
I mean, certainly Amazon's been around longer, but they have much more of a technology provider approach, where we go in and really talk to them, our customers, engage with them in a long-term strategy of, this isn't just about selling them technology or getting them to use our cloud, but actually, how are you changing your business? What does it look like to have a connected car platform? What does it mean to use AI for Shell and finding better drilling processes? So it's a much more of a partnership on the business side, not just the technology. Again, we have so much history in working with enterprise customers for over 40 years. We have a different point of view that we can bring to those customer engagements.
It's been widely reported that Amazon is favored for this big contract with the Pentagon. Are you concerned that Microsoft doesn't have much of a shot?
I think, we are doing everything we have to bring to that, and I think we have a great case and also, great partnerships and technology with the government as well, so I feel great about it.
So you've been making the case to the Defense Department that it should be Microsoft?
Well, we certainly engage in appropriate ways on the bid, and certainly working with the DC area on that.
What about Google? I mean, Google has certainly progressed over the years. They're number 3. Are you seeing more competition from Google? Is it more of a threat than it was, let's say, 2 years ago?
I don't see them a lot in our customer engagements, to be honest. I think Amazon certainly had the first to market leadership position, but I don't see the other vendors coming up very much.
The cloud pie isn't just, it's not like you're dominating for a finite pie, right? It's expanding, right? And so what do you see that pie looking like in, let's say, 5 years? How different does it look in 5 years than it does today? Yeah,
I'm glad you said that, because so many people are about, competing, and I'm like, the pie's so big, it's almost like an unlimited total opportunity. You talk about $4 trillion if you took what is being run, technology on premises today, and where it's going to the cloud. And so I'm not so worried about, the other competition versus what are we doing with customers to kind of take advantage of that and really help them embrace that. So it is an interesting time in this moment with this technology of having effectively no threshold for growth.
Microsoft and several technology companies have found themselves in trickier political situations of late. There was a big protest about a contract that you had with U.S. immigration in the middle of this family separation policy. How do you balance sort of not knowing how the technology is going to be used and whether or not to offer that technology to an arm of the U.S. government?
Yeah, it kind of comes back to the fundamental principles we have around trust and kind of belief around privacy as a human right in those areas. And so as we provide technology, making sure that we are putting in place kind of the right securities, we're doing things within the correct law and meeting the compliance requirements, and really making sure that the privacy and the information around privacy is really in the customer's hands, and that all the kind of capabilities around that are appropriately taken.
So does that mean it doesn't matter to you how the technology is going to be used, or does it?
We certainly want to see technology used for good, and our fundamental principle, and we spend a lot of time around AI for ethics and AI for good, and very much our approach that we have from the beginning is that AI is an enablement of humans and using it in those ways. So certainly that is our investment, that's where we're focused, and that's how we're engaged with that technology and being really responsible about it. But it's also as much of our part in playing with the industry about how we shape this moving forward, and it's super important that we do our part, but also bring the industry together on this.
Microsoft has found evidence that groups affiliated with the Russian government are already trying to hack the election. We've been covering this big Facebook hack, the largest in its history. This is a challenge for cloud companies.
Right.
Are companies, is the cloud really equipped to handle these kinds of security issues when they have such major consequences, including potentially threatening our democracy?
Right. I mean, one of the reasons I'm so passionate about cloud with our customers is because we actually are best set up to deal with this type of adversaries. We spend $1 billion a year on cybersecurity across our cloud. We have 3,500 security engineers. That's all they do. That is their lifeblood. And compared to any organization, even a large commercial, well-funded organization doesn't have that kind of resource to be able to keep up with the threats. It's not people in basements trying to embarrass executives anymore. It is these nation-state threats. And so that's why we invest the level we do. That's why I'm so passionate about getting our customers to take advantage of cloud-based security, because it's just better. And the other aspect of it is, ultimately security is a data game, right? Who has better data, who has better insight? And with across all of Microsoft, we have signal coming from our billion Windows endpoints, the email system that's largest commercial email system, largest directory system. That gives us unique insights to understand what is good and bad intent.
All right, Julia White, Corporate Vice President at Microsoft, thanks so much for joining us.
Absolutely.
Great to have you here on the show. All right, coming up, Silicon Valley may be the land of startups, but the venture capital firm Flying Fish wants Seattle to be more in the game. We're going to talk about Seattle's growing venture scene next. This is Bloomberg. I'm Emily Chang with a special edition of Bloomberg Technology from the GeekWire Summit in Seattle. Tech behemoths like Amazon and Microsoft have flourished in Seattle, but the venture community remains fairly small, leaving some startups no choice but to flee to Silicon Valley for more funding. To address the lack of local capital, investor Heather Redmond co-founded Flying Fish Partners, a venture firm focused on early-stage Seattle companies with investments in AI, machine learning, the cloud. It is just one effort to burnish the city's reputation as a competing tech hub while maintaining local talent and, of course, make some money. Joining us now from Seattle's GeekWire event to talk, Heather Redmond, co-founder of Flying Fish Partners. So flee might be a strong word, but traditionally startups at a certain point in their life cycle haven't been able to get the funding that they need to get to that next stage, and so they go to Silicon Valley. Are you still seeing that?
Yeah, I don't think it's too strong a term, actually. I mean, we really are concerned about that flight, and sometimes it's the companies that we are most excited about that decide they need to go to the Valley because they can't get the network and the resources that they really need to go fast. And one of the myths that I think we're trying to bust up here about this region is that we've got, big company people, and our engineers do not want to start companies at the same numbers that they do in the Valley. And we think instead that they're just really smart, and so they want to do everything in an A-plus kind of way. And if they see an opportunity that they can only pursue in the Valley because they really want to be sure that they've got the capital to back their idea, then they're going to go do it in the Valley. And yet the lifestyle here is much, much better. So you see companies all the time not get formed because you've got a super strong engineer who would be an entrepreneur. They're working at Amazon, and they look at lifestyle versus ultimate desire to start a company, and they say, I'm going to stick with my great job where I get to build great product at Amazon rather than move to the Valley, be miserable, but start a great company.
So you're saying
and we don't want that trade-off.
Some companies just don't, they're stopped before they start.
Yeah, no, it's a real impediment, I think, to what we could unleash here on the West Coast if we could make either the lifestyle better in the Bay Area, or we could make the startup funding environment better in Seattle. We'd have probably 2x the companies that we have today.
So at the current rate, is it possible for the next Amazon or the next Microsoft really to be founded here?
Absolutely. I mean, for one reason, it's getting cheaper and cheaper to found companies. I mean, the cloud itself has enabled companies to start on a much more sort of bootstrapped basis than they used to. You just don't have to buy all your own servers and do all of that kind of heavy lifting from a capital perspective that you used to. So there's absolutely nothing holding back companies from having sort of a customer-first, bootstrappy attitude. And there is enough VC here, and more increasingly. I mean, our firm and a few other firms have come out of the woodwork. A lot of Bay Area firms, I was on the phone this morning with a great one, are looking here more and more. But we just need to accelerate that because it's less about absolute dollars and more about signal. People need to believe the capital is there. So when we started the firm, we always talked about we want money chasing deals, not deals chasing money. And we're beginning to flip that dynamic in Seattle.
So let's talk about signal. How concerned are you that Amazon is opening its second headquarters elsewhere?
I think it's very concerning. I mean, we should be the place that every company wants to be. In fact, I think we are. I mean, we are seeing every company in the Bay Area open a satellite office here and increasingly grow this office faster than they grow their home office in the Bay Area. But the fact that Amazon in particular has made the choice to have another headquarters someplace else, I think is a real knock against the city. It's also a wake-up call. I was sort of first out of the gates on a quote of "It's never too late to say we're sorry," and that's definitely what
Did
the
they
message.
say they're sorry?
I did. I said I was
happening.
sorry. Yeah. No, I think there has been a lot of relationship building between the powers that be and Amazon, and I think all of that is going much better than it used to be going. But we do need to continue to work on that. This region needs to always be open for business, and we need to be sure that we're the very best place to start a company.
Is there something also, though, that big tech companies can do? I mean, certainly these tech companies are being blamed for rising housing prices and overcrowded transportation, and then not paying their fair share. I mean, wherever Amazon goes, it's going to get a huge set of state and local tax breaks. Like, is there something that these companies can be doing more to?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Do their fair share.
Yeah, no, and I think we have an opportunity to really show the way and lead here as well. I mean, I think it was Reuters that called Seattle the Silicon Valley of saving lives, and that was based on the Gates Foundation, what Paul Allen does, a lot of our other major institutions here that are all about worldwide philanthropy. We probably are the philanthropic capital of the world if you actually look at dollars. But leaving that aside, I think what we're seeing now with our tech companies, and you just had Microsoft on the air very recently, I think right before me, we're seeing companies maturing and learning here. So we're seeing that social EQ develop. So Microsoft has gone from being a company that we all hated and was under all this antitrust pressure to really being one of the darlings of the industry in terms of being, foot forward in philanthropy and civic engagement, in helping disadvantaged communities, et cetera. Amazon with the $15 an hour minimum wage announcement yesterday, that's a huge step forward. I mean, the new Uber president came from this area. There's a lot of learnings here, I think, that are occurring that show that tech is ready to grow up and ready to take responsibility. And I think we're going to see that increasingly from Amazon as well as from every tech company here in the region.
So you're investing in AI, you're investing in machine learning.
Yeah.
What are you most excited about, and what's overhyped?
Yeah, interesting. I think what's overhyped a little bit is small companies' ability to add materially to the base AI, ML infrastructure. That really takes a big company in most instances. But what isn't overhyped is every company, when they start or when they're reinventing their own business, thinking about building AI first. So you look at the way we used to think about software as having this transformative effect on every industry. AI is now having that same transformative effect, and I think AI is increasingly going to replace software. Of course, it's software too, but it's going to replace software as the key competitive advantage. So if you look at Microsoft completely pivoting their products to AI ML, you look at Amazon tearing down their own operations and rebuilding them from the ground up on an AI ML foundation, that's really important. So it's looking at it like you would cloud or mobile or any other enabling technology and saying, how do I drive every bit of efficiency and better performance with this as my base?
There's been talk of an AI winter and this concern that some companies won't be able to deliver on the promise of AI, and also that there might just be limits to what AI is capable of. Are you concerned about that?
No, I'm not. I mean, it's early days still, for sure, but we're seeing very commercial products out in the market today. We've got a couple in our portfolio, Fin.ai and Stream, that are absolutely delivering with very baseline AI, super compelling results. Still takes a ton of work, and you have to have those smart data scientists who are not always easy to find. But if you have them, you can deliver a product that is markedly different for the end user and much cheaper for the company. And that's what, really drives innovation.
I want to ask you about diversity in venture capital, in entrepreneurship. We've seen some great momentum in Silicon Valley, the formation of Allraise, this group of competing female venture capitalists getting together to try to get more women in VC and more women funded. But how much actual progress are you seeing?
Yeah, I think we have a very long way to go, and I really appreciate your work in this area too. I'm a huge fan of the work you've done and the reporting that you've done. That there is a major impediment, and it's an impediment related to funding. So everyone who's a startup thinks about, I just got to get money from a venture capitalist. For a new venture fund to form, you need to get money from a foundation, a fund of funds, an institution of one kind or another, a pension fund, whatever. And those folks don't like to fund things that are new. They like to fund things that are proven because they're managing widows and orphans money, right? So to get new entrants into venture is very, very difficult, and that's what we've got to do to move the needle, because these small partnerships,
it's limited partners that need to step up.
It is, yes, we need to see, and I think people like Melinda Gates have done a good job of really ringing that bell and pronouncing that to the world, but we still are not seeing very old, very conservative financial institutions move quickly enough to fund new venture capital firms that are founded by women, founded by underrepresented minorities, et cetera. And that's what will change things, because you can't add one woman to a 10-person partnership and expect that to move the needle, and particularly not one woman who's not even an investor to a 10-person partnership and expect that to move the needle. So we really need to see some venture firms, and we have some, but we need a lot more, that are founded by women and underrepresented minorities.
Absolutely. Amen. Heather Redman, co-founder of Flying Fish Partners. Good to have you here on the show.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for stopping by. All right. Well, California's recent push to get more women on corporate boards may barely impact the state's largest businesses. A Bloomberg analysis found that of California's 88 largest companies, each of which has a market value of at least $10 billion, only one has no female director. Cloud software provider Viva Systems has no women on its board, while 10 other companies, including Broadcom and Palo Alto Networks, have at least one. So some people already done a little bit of the hard work, but a lot more hard work to be done. eBay has accused rival Amazon of poaching sellers from its marketplace site by infiltrating its internal messaging system. The online auction site says it launched an internal probe after an eBay seller claimed they'd been contacted by an Amazon employee attempting to recruit the person to switch platforms. eBay sent a cease and desist letter to Amazon Monday, accusing the bigger rival of breaching California's Comprehensive Computer Data Access and Fraud Act. The companies are fierce competitors, of course, relying on independent merchants to sell on their sites. And Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg is looking for a chief investment officer to oversee more than $10 billion of his philanthropic giving. Zuckerberg and his wife Priscilla Chan co-head the Chan-Zuckerberg Initiative. They launched the organization in 2015 with the goal of eradicating disease, improving education, and reforming the criminal justice system. Coming up, Tim Cook takes on Facebook. He says that Apple wouldn't get hacked like Facebook did. Is he correct? We'll talk about that. And is Hollywood, as we know it, over? IAC Chair Barry Diller says we have tech giants like Amazon and Netflix to thank for that. We're going to hear all he has to say about consolidation in the media industry later this hour. This is Bloomberg. This is a special edition of Bloomberg Technology live from the GeekWire Summit in Seattle. Well, the FTC has announced that it is looking at the Facebook hack that compromised the accounts of 50 million users. And it's not the only one talking about the breach. Tim Cook is touting the way that Apple does business and taking a shot at companies that make their money off users' free personal data. Cook told Vice News that a hack like the one that hit those 50 million Facebook accounts wouldn't happen at Apple. Why? Well, he says because your personal data remains stored and encrypted on your phone and your phone alone. So is he right? Let's bring in Bloomberg's Sarah Fryer, who covers Facebook. You know, Sarah, this is a line that Tim Cook has been giving over the last year, perhaps slightly upping the ante here. But is Tim Cook correct here?
Well, iPhones are known for their very high level of security. The thing that I would push Tim Cook on here is that there is this entire developer network that Apple does have where it really allows people who use iPhones and iPhone apps to give as much information as they want to developers, sometimes even beyond ways that they truly understand. And so I think Apple, if it's going to be out there talking about how good it is at privacy and security, there is more that they could do. If they really want to lead here, they could take a few extra steps in that direction that could really help go a long way to improving user privacy.
That said, Apple's business model is very different from a company like Facebook and Google. And one of the things that Tim Cook talked about, and he used the word bunk, he said it is bunk that companies need your data or this much of your personal data in order to operate. But isn't that
in order
what
to run an
Facebook's entire business model is predicated on? Exactly.
Right. I mean,
they're basically renting our data to advertisers.
Facebook needs the data in order to do this kind of personalized, targeted advertising. Apple is starting to build an advertising business, but it really isn't significant for the company's overall revenue. And so they can get away with saying that they don't need people's data in order to personalize ads or anything like that. But they have other businesses that run on data, like the developer business.
That said, now we know the Facebook hack maybe even worse than we thought. You've got companies that tie into Facebook via Facebook Connect and Facebook logins, like Airbnb, Spotify, Pinterest, that could also be impacted. What is the latest here that we know?
Well, Facebook has seen no evidence of that kind of direct impact, but this is just the beginning of the story of that hack. The Irish data protection regulator said that they are starting an investigation into it to figure out how much it affected European citizens, which are now covered under GDPR. The FTC says that it hasn't escaped their attention, so there's going to be a lot more to come out. And of course, we still haven't heard from Facebook what the motivation was of these attackers and what kind of information they actually got.
Right, and there's a chance we'll never know. And part of the problem is that these hackers could have got in, looked around, and without leaving a trace. Okay, Bloomberg Tech, Sarah Fryer in San Francisco. As always, thank you so much, Sarah, for that update. Well, it's not just data security that's an issue for Facebook and other online media. Fake videos and audio keep getting better, faster, and easier to make, increasing tech's potential for harm if put in the wrong hands. Bloomberg Quick Take explains how good so-called deep fakes have become in the last few months and what's being done to counter them.
We're entering an era in which our enemies can make it look like anyone is saying anything at any point in time.
Jordan Peele created this fake video of President Obama to demonstrate how easy it is to put words in someone else's mouth.
Moving forward, we need to be more vigilant with what we trust from the internet.
Not everyone bought it, but the technology behind such frauds is rapidly improving, even as worries increase about their potential for harm. This is your Bloomberg Quick Take on deep fakes. Deepfakes, or realistic-looking fake videos and audio, gained popularity as a means of adding famous actresses into porn scenes. Despite bans on major websites, they remain easy to make and find. They're named for the deep learning artificial intelligence algorithms that make them possible. Input real audio or video of a specific person, the more the better, and the software tries to recognize patterns in speech and movement. Introduce a new element like someone else's face or voice, and a deepfake is born.
It's actually extremely easy to make one of these things. There were just some breakthroughs from academic researchers who work with this particular kind of machine learning in the past few weeks, which would drastically reduce the amount of video you need actually to create one of these.
Programs like FakeApp, the most popular and widely available for making deep fakes, need dozens of hours of human assistance to create a video that looks like this, rather than this. In August, researchers at Carnegie Mellon revealed software that accurately rendered not just facial features, but changing weather patterns and flowers in bloom. This advance is not yet available to the public. But with increasing capability comes increasing concern.
This is kind of fake news on steroids, potentially. We do not know of a case yet where someone has tried to use this to perpetrate a kind of fraud or an information warfare campaign, or for that matter, to really damage someone's reputation. But it's the danger that everyone is really afraid of.
In a world where fakes are easy to create, authenticity also becomes easier to deny. People caught doing genuinely objectionable things could claim evidence against them is bogus. Fake videos can also be difficult to detect, though researchers around the world and at the U.S. Department of Defense have said they're working on ways to counter them.
Bloomberg quick take there on an explosion of deep fakes online. Coming up, media mogul Barry Diller says the entertainment industry could be in big trouble if it continues to consolidate. Part of David Rubenstein's conversation with the IAC chair is next. This is Bloomberg. The latest episode of the David Rubenstein Show Peer-to-Peer Conversations features an interview with Barry Diller, IAC chairman and senior executive. They talk about the current state of the movie and television business, including the rise of Netflix and Amazon, of course. Here's what they had to say.
Today, the internet is still very much part of our lives. Yeah. What about television and motion picture? Do you think they'll continue to be important parts of our lives?
I think the movie business is over as a really cultural institution of any great value, because the movie business is now primarily it's about making sequels and big, huge mega movies that are more marketing things than anything else. So I think movies have very much receded. I think television is, of course, as we all know, it's having a great period because of the incredible optionality in television and the craft.
Are you worried that 4 or 5 technology companies can control our culture and our lives so much, or you're not worried about that?
No, I am worried about that. I've always thought concentration, too much concentration is bad, and that goes against the consolidating principles, which are forcing consolidation everywhere and will continue to. And I think that's not a good thing. But
you expect the movie companies and television companies will ultimately be bought by these big technology companies?
I'm not so sure they'll buy them. I think they'll actually supersede them. I mean, the thing is that that the 2 companies that are really dominating right now are Netflix, grown totally outside of the infrastructure of the entertainment business, and Amazon, and whose business model is absolutely antithetical in a way to what the business model of entertainment has been, which is you put on a show and people like it and the audience comes and they pay you. Their business model is to sell subscriptions to Prime. And just as a subsidiary, they give you good stuff on the side.
It's worked out pretty well.
Yeah.
David Rubenstein there with IAC chairman Barry Diller. You can catch David's full conversation with Barry Diller Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. Well, Tesla's Model 3 is driving towards another record. First, it was America's best-selling electric car, and then it became the best-selling luxury car. Now it's one of the country's best-selling sedans, period. After automakers reported monthly and quarterly earnings Tuesday, Tesla delivered more Model 3s than all but 4 of the top sedans sold in the United States. While Tesla's numbers also included some deliveries to Canada, the third quarter was showing unprecedented growth for an electric car and a remarkable turnaround for Tesla, which has struggled for much of the year, as we know, to mass produce the sedan. Tesla isn't the only car company thriving, though. GM just received its second major investment in its self-driving car unit Cruise in months. Honda committed to spending $2.75 billion on the company, where $2 billion will be spent over 12 years to jointly develop autonomous cars. The exclusive partnership with GM gives Honda a 5% stake in Cruise, which has become a serious competitor to Waymo's self-driving car unit. Waymo, of course, that Alphabet subsidiary. NHP just gave an upbeat profit forecast for fiscal 2019, signaling that the world's largest maker of personal computers will continue to see robust demand. Profit will be $2.12 to $2.22 a share, excluding certain items. This topped analyst estimates. The tech giant has climbed to the top of the PC market under CEO Dion Weisler by overhauling its product portfolio. And that does it for this edition of Bloomberg Technology. Tomorrow on the show, we will be joined by Jessica Powell, the former head vice president of global communications and public affairs at Google. She is out with her first book on Medium, and it's a satire about Silicon Valley. You don't want to miss that. I'm Emily Chang. This is Bloomberg.